And they've divided up the industrial heritage into sort of 5 areas. So we've got the extractive industries, and this is the Arkle Quarry, there's Maddox Quarry, there's Buckettree Quarries, coal mines around Little Wenlock, manufacturing industries, bricks. There's nice actually, there's a brick over near Shortwood, set in the ground, it says Colmore on it. It's really quite sort of sweet, just saying this is what happened here, there was bricks work there. Timber is still produced here, and on the Wrekin there's 126 charcoal halves producing charcoal to feed the furnaces locally to produce iron. Both of those industries have left their mark on the landscape. Now either we can let their mark become unrecognisable, indecipherable, or we can spend some time actually understanding that and making sure that future generations know what the history of the area is. Forms of power: water, steam, electricity. On the farthest reaches of our project, over near Horsey, there's a Morton Coppice, and there was a steam mill there. There's a large quarry there now, they're after the dolerite. Down at Leighton, there's a number of water mills, private houses now, but they're using the Dingle water as it comes off the Wrekin. Transport systems, tramways, tracks and roads. Talking to farmers this morning, showed us some maps from 1882. There's tramways that used to feed up to the Hatch, and they were in these fields, but in the 1960s, with great effort, they took them away, dug them up. Apparently these banks were about 16 foot high as it crossed out of the woodlands and around. So a lot of the tramways are lost in terms of on the agricultural fields, but any sort of wandering trip through the woods, and you quite quickly come across these routes that are still there. On social systems, there's some workers' housing at New Works. So there's a notion New Works was developed for the workers in that local area, and I'm sure there's similar features locally in Little Wenlock and elsewhere. That one a little bit more. Yeah. Archaeology: Wrekin Hill Fort, 2,000 years old. Willamore Barrows, even older, the sort of Bronze Age. Charcoal halves I mentioned. Got lost house, keep encountering houses, not there anymore, but they're just the bases of them, or the rubbish tips. Wrekin Rifle Range, opened in 1870. It is a very strong feature. It's closed now, closed in sort of early 80s, but it's there. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't think it should be dug up. So it's like modern archaeology. Neves Castle, there's sort of earthworks there. Another layer, we're talking about sort of modern developments. In looking at the industrial heritage, we're talking about disturbances and upheavals in the past. These are things that are going on now. Devil's Dingle, which this is a photo of, was the ash disposal site for the power station. Planning permission granted in 1960. I think they started dumping in 66. Backfilled the dingle and moved out. We did have a look. We went right to the back of the dingle, and the fence, there's about 6 foot of ancient semi-natural woodland with bluebells just left at the back of the dingle. So we didn't waste any of the space in this thing. Now, many years later, it's being restored. It will become a nature reserve. It will have 3 pools. There's opportunities for amphibians. We've already got breeding birds, wading birds and other birds on the pools. As plovers were the last time we were there. So there's an opportunity here with this particular sort of site is to gain wildlife benefits. UK Coal have been prospecting at Huntington. There's a plan application at some point in the future. Not sure really what to say about that. I've seen the plans. I understand what they'd like to do, but we really need to wait and see. So it's a bit of a bigger issue. I'll leave that for the moment. Candles landfill site is an active landfill site. Eventually, rather like the site at Colmore, will be full. And there are opportunities then for either grazing to return, but for new hedges to be put in, for that to be restored properly. On the eastern fringes of the Wrekin Forest, we have things like the Ironstone development at Lawley. So we have housing development. Now, we met with the Borough Council, chat with them and said, look, we've got this bit of countryside here. We need you to give us some idea of what the pressures are, what's on your mind. They depend on what office you speak to. will depend on how great the threat is. So maybe it's a matter of just building knowledge and information about this site, which is why we're active at Moreton Coppice. It's right on the far edge of the countryside, where the countryside meets the town at Horsay, and we're looking for other sites where we can be active on the fringes. Power lines, telecommunications, transport. Well, there's one power line. Telecommunications, there's the mast. That's great, isn't it? And transport. And the knock-on effects of the development in Telford is cars will be looking for new opportunities to move around. A great number of cars. There might be lorries. There might be taking produce somewhere. There's very few lanes through the Wrekin Forest, so the chances are that those will become impacted by an increase in development in Telford. Great number of cars. It's already the road from Horsay through Little Wenlock down to the Forest Glen is already used as a rat run to cut the corner off. So these are transport issues, and they do impact on the quality of the landscape. Okay. Troubles from the urban fringe. 160,000 people live within 20 minutes of the Wrekin Forest. There's calculated to be about 80,000 visits made a year by that group. It's not all of them, obviously, but some of them are repeat visitors or offenders. These aren't strictly urban problems, but they tend to be more on display in a rural environment. Fly tipping and littering. I mean, a single McDonald's cup in the middle of a green field is very obvious. So a single piece of litter. Dump stolen vehicles, they tend to be burnt to remove forensic traces from them. So any fingerprints and that, they burn the car. I've noticed that there are hot spots, they tend to be where gates are slightly set back, obviously allow a tractor, there's a practical reason for doing that. But it's also an opportunity to park up, torch your car, your mate's waiting, off you go. They're quiet, there's nobody living locally to report it very easily and quickly. Vandalism to property. Any property that's unoccupied or unused for any period of time gets vandalised. Again, we're talking about the Wrekin Forest as a rural area, and these properties are few and far between. For example, the halfway house, for a long time, it was difficult to get a tenant to stay in the halfway house for a great deal. They found it very cold and isolated during the winter. It's great during the summer. What tended to happen when the tenants moved out in sort of November is the house is vandalised. It is isolated. No neighbours there. So vandalism to property is an issue that we have to be very aware of when we talk about any development that involves any